For more now on this is Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister, Patrick Gorman, and former Liberal MP, Jason Falinski. This is a very heavy day. Thank you both for your time. Jason, can I just get your reaction to that there, the pro-Palestine supporter causing disruption at these tributes? It's just so disturbing and disgusting. And
unfortunately, Holly, so typical. So many of these activists are just attention-seeking, and the lack of awareness, the lack of respect, the lack of, frankly, humanity involved in that act alone needs to be called out by our political leaders and our community leaders, because it is not acceptable. And really, the things that we should be talking about tomorrow and the weeks that come are the infrastructure that has been built up that both enables and encourages this sort of behaviour throughout our community. And that's what really needs to change if we are to get back to the sort of Australia that Patrick and I grew up in, one where cohesion was taken for granted, not something that is now under threat.
Minister Gorman, I mean, does the government have blood on its hands for its weakness on anti-Semitism? This hatred has been allowed to fester in our country since October 7.
Let me say, firstly, we will do everything necessary to continue to stamp out anti-Semitism. It is a horrible form of hate that targets a community, including the community I represent here in Perth, where we have thousands of people proudly living and embracing Jewish life. And what we have seen over the last 24 hours, I think, breaks the hearts of all Australians. If I can also just on that protester, I think that was, I share with Jason in condemning that action. I wanted to also, though, embrace the very generous spirit of thousands of Australians who are showing up to memorials across Australia. I'll be going to Government House here in Perth at the conclusion of this interview to lay some flowers to pass on my condolences, and I'd encourage all Australians to either find a way to do that or, as the Prime Minister highlighted in his press conference just a few moments ago, light a candle tonight at 6:47 p.m. To remember those who have been lost, but also to remember the sort of Australia that we are, the Australia that works together, especially in the face of horrific terror attacks.
Jason, the Prime Minister and Minister Gorman there has just said that they'll do everything they can to stamp out anti-Semitism. Well, it's a bit late. Say that to the parents of 10-year-old Matilda, who was slaughtered last night. This makes me, and I'm sure so many people watching, feel sick and so incredibly angry. The writing was on the wall and it was ignored by our leaders. That is not leadership, that is weakness.
So, Holly, let me say, I know that Patrick is as upset about this as I am. The fact remains, though, that when the Prime Minister won't say the words Islamic terrorism, when the Prime Minister has to say this act of barbarity and then immediately talk about far right-wing threats and violence, it means that we are playing politics and not being serious. This is, to put this in context, this is the second most deadly attack of anti-Semitism in the world in our history. It is inconceivable that this would have happened 3 years ago. We had in New South Wales a government that spent 6 months trying to prove that a crowd of protesters at the Opera House weren't saying gas the Jews, but were instead saying where are the Jews. Somehow that was better. Instead of actually getting on with the job of calling out this violence, this hatred, this reckless hatred that has been allowed to fester and go on for so long, it's just appalling. And to watch Tony Burke once again just smarm his way through another press conference, refusing to answer direct questions and hiding behind intelligence services, just means that I don't know that this is going to get better while ever he is the Home Affairs Minister in this country.
Patrick, I really want to get to what can be changed, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But before we do, instead of acting on anti-Semitism, right, our government, the party that you also represent, has allowed hate to fester here. The protests to occur on the steps of the Opera House, chanting about death to the Jews, where are the Jews, as Jason was just saying. It allowed protests to take over our major cities every single weekend, some holding terrorist flags, burning of synagogues, Jewish landmarks targeted, our schools targeted. Our leaders then criticised the Israeli government and then recognised Palestinian statehood. That is not leadership, Patrick.
Oh, well, I think your viewers know the extensive action that this government has taken when it comes to the continued fight to stamp out anti-Semitism. We've appointed Special Envoy, as you've seen, extensive work.
And you didn't take any of the recommendations or put them into action.
Many of them have been including the work that's been done with universities, the work that we've done in terms of further restrictions in our criminal laws around hate speech and the use of Nazi symbols. And that work continues in the funding that we have increased significantly over previous years to support things like the community security groups that are sadly, I wish they didn't exist, but they are sadly necessary for the Jewish community, including the community based predominantly around the J-Hub in Yokine, in my electorate. And as the Prime Minister just announced, extra funding for those groups. These are young people in our communities who go out there to protect their fellow Australian citizens. I've spoken to parents who have their children who make that contribution. And if I can just say to them, to those people who contribute to those community security groups who are there, including at synagogues in my electorate overnight, I want to say a sincere thank you. We back you. We're backing you with additional financial support, just as we'll continue to support the community in other ways, as the Prime Minister's just outlined, with looking at deductible gift recipient status improvements so that those who want to give, where you can take a positive action in the face of unimaginable terror, will support that as well.
Well, Patrick, I mean, it's all good and well. Of course, support is always wanted and thanked, of course. But it's a bit late. You've got 15 innocent people who have been slaughtered here. This is not a new thing out of the blue. Anti-Semitism has been festering here. I have covered multiple protests in Melbourne where this hate has been allowed to continue every single weekend. One of the rabbis who died, as I'm sure you would know, wrote a letter to our Prime Minister just a couple of weeks ago, voicing these concerns about recognising Palestinian statehood. He did nothing, and here we are. Here we are. Jason, I just want to get your thoughts on this. I know I sound angry, but this is a colossal failure of our government.
Holly, one thing that the federal government could do tomorrow is, and it can't spend its way out of this problem, but when there was a neo-Nazi protest in front of the Parliament House in Macquarie Street, Sydney, within a week, the leader of that protest had been deported and his Australian-born family was deported with him. Tony Burke is yet to talk about deporting a single person involved and encouraging this act of terrorism on our shores. That goes to the double standards that are here. But if we want to change this, we have to go to the enablers of this. We have a charity sector in Australia where far too many charities are washing hundreds of millions of dollars through them into Australian society to promote causes that are inimical to our social cohesion. That needs to be overhauled, not today, but 2 weeks ago. It needs to be a matter of urgency. The violence and the intolerance that we see at universities, and Patrick just mentioned it then, is ongoing and is continuing to accelerate. And instead of meeting that head on, the government needs to look at who is funding it, how it is being funded, and cut it off at the knees. We do not want to go the way that so many other countries in Western Europe have gone. This, I cannot say it enough times, this is the second most deadly attack of anti-Semitism in the history of the world, happened here in Australia.
It did. We'll just have to leave things there. I'm sorry we've run out of time, but of course there'll be a lot to come out of this. There are still so many questions that need to be answered. We've of course got many questions about the offenders themselves and how they were legally able to own 6 firearms here. Many questions still to come to light about that, and also these gun reforms that may be being reviewed this afternoon as well. Thank you both for your time. I appreciate it. Such a heavy day. Thank you.